All right, we're going to call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank all the staff that set us up. Not sure if I should mention this, but I did have a strange dream last night that we had technical difficulties, and I woke up thinking, man, I'm so just thankful for these guys and everything they do. It's just a strange thing to have, but I know how much goes into a lot of this sometimes, and I just want to express my gratitude to everyone here, all the staff. If we could have a roll call.
Chad Scott.
Here.
Here. Nancy Bertels. Here. Aaron Malone.
Here.
Dorothy Dennison.
Here.
Eric Palin. Absent. Susan Hillman.
Here.
Camilla Potts.
Here.
And Sally Pollen.
Here.
All right. Would anyone like to approve the agenda? Get a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Aaron, if you could help us. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anyone have any questions of the meetings from the previous meeting or would like to make a motion to accept?
I move we accept minutes from last meeting.
All right. And staff reports. Ms. Morrissey, if you'd like to start.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Scott and Vice Chair Dempsey and all of the LCAC. I'm Jillian Morrissey. I'm the Community Development Director for the Mat-Su Borough. And I'm here tonight to provide a special report because I have a final decision for you on the book Identical. I'm going to be reading my comment, so from at this point on, I'll be looking down so that I can actually see it, my glasses. And I thank you all for being here. I first want to thank all the Library Citizens Advisory Committee for their service and their recommendations. I have reviewed the meeting recording, your comments, your scorecards, and the votes on the book Identical. I would like to make you aware of the factors that I used to determine my final decision. The Mat-Su Borough Community Development Department received updated information on the Mat-Su Borough School District's administration decision on where to reshelve Identical at school libraries. On 8/21/24, the school district stated that the Identical was reshelved only in 912 libraries. This is different information than what was previously reported and relayed in the staff report that we gave to the LCAC. This is relevant as it shows that the MSBSD administration reviewed similar advisory votes and chose to retain the book in the young adult section of their libraries. 2. The purpose of the creation of the LCAC by the Mat-Su Borough Assembly was to incorporate citizens in the review process, providing a better understanding of the attitudes and opinions held in the community. Number 3, in the library collection development policy, the young adult collection purpose is to provide material for young adults 16 and over in a variety of formats, to meet the recreational and informational interests, as well as to support their formal educational curriculum. Number 4, the purpose of the scorecards is for individual members of the Library Citizen Advisory Committee to provide direct feedback to me on their evaluation of the library material being reviewed. Unfortunately, most committee members did not answer many of the questions asked. Not one scorecard had all the questions answered. Most committee members left the first section, evaluation criteria questions, blank. The staff report provided on the library material being reviewed is a resource for all of you, but definitely not a replacement for your individual answers. My request is that each member fills out the entirety of the scorecard moving forward. For the review under the section for suitability of minors, all 7 LCACA members answered yes to question 1, which was, does the material depict the following act or simulated conduct? And question 2, would the average individual applying contemporary community standards find that the material, taken as a whole, appears to the prurient interest in sex for persons under 16 years of age? 6 LCAC members answered yes to question 3. Would a reasonable person find the material, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, educational, political, or scientific value for persons under 16 years of age? 5 members answered yes to question 4. Does the material depict actual or simulated conduct in a way that is patently offensive to the prevailing standards and the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for persons under 16 years of age? 1 member who voted no on question 4 stated that she did not believe it was her place to make that determination for the community, and she added an additional 2 pages of comment to her scorecard. Number 6. 5 members voted to remove the book from the library and 2 to reshelve to the adult section. Additionally, a committee member that voted to remove the book from the library also provided written commentary that if at the end of the day it's kept in the public library, it should be kept in the adult section. These factors, including our administrative policy, show that the book Identical shall remain in the Mat-Su libraries of their origin and will be reshelved to the adult collection. I do not believe it's appropriate to remove the book from the library when the concern from the LCAC is mainly the appropriateness of the material for children. My decision respects parental choice to apply for a library card with their child, parental responsibility for the library material choices of the child, and provide the freedom for patrons to choose library materials of their interest. I would like to add that parents and guardians can view their children's I would like to add that parents and guardians can view their children's checked out books at any time by logging into their account online or inquiring at the library. Additionally, the Joint Alaska Library Network is working on a refresh of their app this fall, and it will include the ability of parents to tether their account to their child. Parents will be able to review all library material checked out to the minor from the convenience of their mobile app. That concludes my comments for tonight. I'm happy to entertain any questions, but I will assure you that my comments are pretty much covered in the entirety of this memo. And I also want to give you the space. You have work to do tonight to reviewing another book and give you the space and time for that, which is what this time has been scheduled for.
Any questions from Ms. Morrissey?
I will leave copies of this memo with Sarah Thomas here and also for members of the public that would be interested in having it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Hugh, did you have anything?
Thank you, Pastor Scott. Just some housekeeping issues. I'm Hugh Leslie. I'm the Recreation and Library Services Manager. To my right is Sarah Thomas. She's our Division Admin Specialist. Much like our last meeting, we will get the scorecards out to you if you don't already have them. We will collect the scorecards after your deliberations, and we're here to assist the board, the committee in any way that we can. And then as a bit of more housekeeping, you have 3 more books on the on-deck circle. We do have one of those books here with us. I believe we have Damsel. If you chose to review that book, we did that as a precursor before the last meeting. What we will be doing going forward is we will not order books until you all did it, but we took a preemptive strike prior to the committee forming, unless you have any questions for Sarah or myself.
Any questions for the staff? All right, thank you. We will open up for audience participation, 2 minutes per person. Do we have a list? We have Mary McCrum.
A little shaky, I fell down.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Mary McCrum. I live in Talkeeton. I've lived there for 47 years. I've also worked at the Talkeetna Library for 10 years, and I have also been on the board of the Friends of the Library. I would like to discuss the process of the censorship going on. When I see injustice, I need to say something. I object to the removal of the book Identical by Ellen Hopkins. Ellen Hopkins wrote this book to reach out to the children victimized by incest, which to my mind is a very meaning of a redeeming social value. These children live in terror from the abusers who abuse not only them physically, but worse, they take their very souls. The abuser steals childhood from their very own child. The victim's power is taken away. They have to live with a secret, never talk about their trauma, and protect the perpetrator, keeping it a secret. This book hopes to help these traumatized children see that they are not the only ones when this happens to them. And hopefully they might recognize how they are being manipulated by the abuse of power by the perpetrator. And with a little luck, they might start talking about this abuse to someone. The only way they can get their power back is to expose their trauma. Once the incest is hopefully exposed, then it might end. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is freedom. Abuse of power is tyranny. Tyranny is a cruel, harsh, and unfair government or behavior by a person or a group with the power over others. When any government or truth undertakes to say that its subjects may not read this, or you may not see this, or you are forbidden to know this, the result is tyranny and oppression, no matter how holy the motives. Robert A. Heinlein. The secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny lies in keeping them ignorant. Robespierre.
Thank you, Mary.
Is my 2 minutes up?
Yep.
Okay.
Lynn Lovegreen.
Hi, I'm Lynn Lovegreen, and I'm the Alaska chapter leader for Authors Against Book Bans. I'm here as an Alaskan author of young adult books. Our national group has emailed a letter to Ms. Morrissey also. I thank the Library Advisory Committee for giving the public an opportunity to speak. I'm sure we are all here because we care about young people. In my experience working with teens, I understand how important it is for our youth to be supported. I know that books can be a critical part of that process. While not every book is for every reader, one book can make a positive difference in a young person's life. Books with tough subject matter may seem too much for a teen to handle, but in reality, books often provide perspective and support when teens are dealing with difficult issues in real life. Reading about these issues helps teens know that they're not alone. Books help kids learn more about themselves, their friends, and the world around them. When we censor or ban books, we infringe on Americans' First Amendment rights, including the freedom of expression, ideas, and thought. We may not personally agree with or like every book in the library, but every book is perfect for someone. Books provide an opportunity to learn or see different points of view. The freedom to read is the foundation of our public libraries. Professional librarians have training and experience in collection development and review. Please listen to these public servants and establish policies that address valid concerns about challenged books. Let's keep books on the shelves that young people want and need to read. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lynn. There's a Linda question mark. What's that?
It's an S,
sorry. No.
Your panel voted unanimously that the book Identical has no redeeming value. I have read enough of that book to know it isn't worth the paper that it's printed on, so I am totally against this book being in the library at all. Who would it benefit by putting it in the adult section, and what are you trying to turn our taxpayer-funded libraries into? Adult bookstores? As a Mat-Su-Borough taxpayer, I don't approve of our hard-earned funds being used in this way. There is something very dark and evil going on in our local libraries. A couple years ago, I was in the Palmer Public Library to find some recreational reading. I liked Palmer Library because of the spines of the books with Christian content. They had crosses on the bottom indicating if they had Christian content, so it was easy to find what you were looking for. On this day, as I found a few books, and I was approaching the desk to check out the books. There was a lower table in front of the checkout desk with the book identical on its spine. And a librarian was standing next to it, and her name tag said Beth. And I said, "Oh, identical. That looks interesting." And as I reached for it, Beth pulled it back and said, "Oh, you wouldn't be interested in this book. This is for young adults." And I was thinking, that's a pretty thick book for young adults. And she continued to say, "It's about identical twins." Well, we have twins in my family history, so my interest was piqued. But since she held it back, I didn't pursue it, and I just checked out the books I had and went my way. Then Jackie challenged the same book, and I have read several sections of it to the Palmer and Wasilla City Councils and the Borough Assembly. I have become quite familiar with the book, Identical, and it has no redeeming value for anyone, and we taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for the vulgar, evil filth, and it should not be shelved in our taxpayer-funded libraries. It is addictive, destructive material that has no moral or ethical benefit to our community.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Jeannie Troshinsky. Hope I didn't get that too far off. And I apologize, Linda. Someone rewrote this list here, so it was someone else's copy of what you wrote, and so it was a question mark there. But thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Jeannie Troshinsky. I've lived in the Valley for 30 years. Tonight, I brought copies to share with you of two important laws: Alaska Statute 1430-356, Breeze Law, and Alaska Statute 1430-365. These two laws were written because two young women were assaulted and killed due to sexual dates. You know, it is really tough to read some of these books. They really deal with tough topics. A parent said to me not too long ago, talking about the banned books, he said, "I wish my biggest worry that my teenager was going to the library and reading a book." These kids have so much to deal with. It is Alaska law that children in K through 12 are taught about sexual assault. And part of that law requires that they have access to resources that support the ability to fight off sexual assault on a date. And that's what this book, Red Hood, is all about. It's about a young woman who has a relationship that is, yes, it's in depth, and some people, I realize, especially some adults, it's very tough to handle that part of the book, that few pages that describe that. And the author, when interviewed, said she wrote that because she wanted people to understand that consensual sex is a positive thing. And as you know, the book goes on then to describe the pain of being pursued and assaulted and raped. It's to show the contrast. And folks, it may be really hard for us as adults to read some of this stuff, but kids are way smarter than this. They get it. I'm just constantly amazed by the people who act like teenagers, 14 and up, who are young adults by definition, don't understand about sex. Hate to tell you, but I might want to check the chlamydia facts about children in this borough that are in middle school.
All right. Thank you. Mary Robinson.
Good evening. My name is Mary Robinson. I am a borough resident and I represent myself. I also have copies of information that I will leave for you, and I'm just going to read part of it to you. Parents have a sacred job in raising their children with the values that matter to their own families. We encourage parents to actively participate in their children's visits to the library and to pay close attention to what they are reading and accessing online. We will not, however, limit access to a book because one group within the community finds it offensive. Remember, we serve everyone. This was written roughly about 7 months ago by library directors across the state of Alaska. Should I give this to you or to Mr. Scott? Thank you. So similarities between the borough libraries, the Wasilla Library, the Palmer Library, the university libraries, the school libraries. They all had, and still have to some extent, though the goalposts keep being moved, well-crafted library collection development policy, trained librarians and staff, established material challenges procedures, established reconsideration procedures, and parental consent for under 18 library card. Some of the similarities of lawsuits that have been brought against the school board, and I'm sure the borough LCAC, are violation of open meeting acts, discriminatory comments connecting LGBTQ individuals and books, collusion between government officials, committee members, and book challengers, suppression of ideas, viewpoint discrimination, agreement with defamatory statements and threats by the book challengers, elevating religious beliefs over individual freedoms, and completely ignoring the Alaska Constitution very strong right to privacy. I hope that you will consider all of these factors. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. Kathy Kaiser.
Good evening, committee. Dr. Gay Ivey, Professor of Literacy at the University of North Carolina, and Peter Johnston, Professor of Literacy Teaching and Learning at the University of New York, published this book in January that highlights their research of young adults reading disturbing books in school. The title pretty much says it all: Teens Choosing to Read, Fostering Social, Emotional, and Intellectual Growth Through Books. This research, conducted over a 4-year period, was grounded in hundreds of interviews along with extensive additional research they conducted with 8th graders that shows when the students were able to choose their own reading material, some even read identical in Red Hood, they became enthusiastic readers and in the process avoided many current adolescent problems, experienced better family and peer relationships, and became more academically, socially, emotionally, and morally secure. This isn't my opinion. This is fact-based, peer-reviewed research. Those who wish to restrict and remove these books from libraries are not acting in the best interest of our young adults. There is absolutely zero research to support the assertions that these books are harmful to young adults. I get that you don't like these books, that they make you uncomfortable, and may even make you upset. Your opinion doesn't matter if it's counter to valid research. It's just an opinion, and an incorrect one at that. Students reported being transformed, feeling happier, more open, with an improved sense of well-being, even managing trauma better because the books they chose invited conversations about and new perspectives on the complexities of their lives. Books that, because they were intense and disturbing, invited a sense of gratitude for the small mercies in their lives. Referring to peer conversations about these books, one student said, "You think you're the only person going through the problems that you're going through, but then you realize that there's plenty of people that have it worse than you, and they've been through that, so you can talk to them and it will make you feel better or get you through what you're going through. Studies have shown that reflection on death and other disturbing experiences tends to increase gratefulness and happiness."
All right, thank you, Kathy. Jackie Goforth.
Thank you, Library Citizens Advisory Committee. My name is Jackie Goforth. I'd like to tell you something about the lawsuit that was just done and the injunction that was done for the LCAC committee that the school board did. I want you to know that they had 56 books that they had pulled out. And the judge made the decision to send 59 of them back, or 49 of them back. 7 books were not sent back. 7. Do you know why those books were not sent back? Because that Library Citizens Advisory Committee ranked them all unanimously as obscene, which means obscene is a legal concept that can be held up in court. And unless a lawyer can tell me differently, that's what it means that those books did not go back. Now, I want you to know that the Library Citizens Advisory Committee is extremely important because you're letting everyone know what's out there and you're letting everyone know exactly how the community feels. And the Library Citizens Advisory Committee over at the school board was 4 school district employees. And I want you to know that Red Hood was voted 8-1 as obscene. 8-1. Okay? I also want you to know that there's something called tacit approval. Has everyone heard of tacit approval? It means if you tell your daughter to be home from a date at 10 o'clock and she doesn't come home till midnight and you don't do anything, what you have told her is 10 o'clock's okay. So if we put obscene books in the library for children, and I'm sorry, a 14-year-old is called a young teen, not a young adult. Only the publishers made that up. If we put those in there and don't say anything, what we're saying is it's okay. That's what happens. The person who checks it out says, oh, it must be okay to the community because it's in here. That's what tacit approval is. And I thank you so much for your service. I thank you for listening to us, some of the members of the community, and all of the community as a whole. And thank you so much for your discretion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Karen Lewis.
Good evening, committee. I'm so glad that you have taken the time to read these books and to go through them. I know that they're difficult. You all unanimously, and there's a librarian up there too, said that this book was indecent. And having indecent books in the libraries is against the law. Now, there needs to be cases proven and go through court, and that will happen. You can bet on it. But when the community standards are really important, okay, our community is conservative, 75% conservative. And when you said it's indecent, I agree, it is indecent. That's a disgusting book. It's not that I'm a prude, because I'm far from it. But 14-year-olds should not be reading things like this. It's, in fact, when one of the identical twins was getting sexually molested by her father, the other one was jealous. You think that's a good thing to get in their head, that you should be jealous because your sister's getting sexually molested by your father? And they glorified drugs in there too. That's not a good thing to do to kids. They're not young adults, by the way. Young adults, my tale. So I'm glad you're there. I wish you had more teeth. I wish, since you're the community people, you were the ones that should be deciding what happens to these books, not a person, one other person. Like our superintendent, after all these people said like 8-1 that the book was indecent, where did it go? Back on the shelves. And one of them even to K-12. Hello. We've got to do something about this. I'm glad this is the beginning, but it's certainly not the end. It's certainly not polished yet. We'll get to there. We'll get there. We'll get this Matsu Valley cleaned out of all this filth. We will. It's right from the pit of hell. It is. This stuff is, you tell me that it's good for people who have been molested? Give me a break.
Thank you, Karen. Mary Rivetta.
Good evening, book committee. I appreciate what you're doing as well. I'm pretty nervous, but I want to share that I went through recovery, 12-step recovery, and for 30 years, and 13 of those years was sexual addiction. I've been in all the meetings listening to people deal with sexual addiction issues from every spectrum is shared in those meetings. And when I think about people that want little kids to read this kind of material, of just like Karen said, that there's a child that the father's molesting, how could that be good for that child to see that without, what I realize is without a solution in the book, which I remember you guys saying there was no solution in the book. nothing. And I've seen what's in the book. It does glorify a lot of things that aren't healthy for the child, doesn't have a solution. So it's just feeding, this area. And I think about who would want a child to read this. I mean, who would want that? Who? What kind of person would want a child to see that kind of material? What only comes to mind is someone who would be trying to prepare a child to be ready for sex that's a young and vulnerable at a really terrible time when they're young and vulnerable. It's not the time to learn that type of material. So I don't see it as something good that they can see that other kids are going through this at all. It's not healthy. And I come from dealing with this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, moving on to unfinished business. Yes, sir.
Pastor Scott, would you like the information that the public passed out now or at another time?
What is that again?
Would you like the information that the public passed out now or at another time?
At another time.
All right.
Yeah, it'd be great. All right, so we're going to open our discussion on the book Red Hood and go through our evaluation process. I'm going to open up for comments and discussion, and I'll kick it off, I suppose. I am disappointed by the decision of the director. I understand it's the bare minimum that they could possibly do. It is, I guess we could say it's moving it an inch. At least it's off one shelf and onto another. The main concern, and I will get into this in a separate issue, I suppose, but based on the system that we have, it's pretty irrelevant what shelf it's on when the library has no system of restricting it from access and being checked out. So I think it falls short, whether it's the school, borough, or our libraries, but I'm going to try to contain my comments a little bit, but of a lot of the commentary in the public supporting these books, I want to make a genuine appeal. If someone would be willing to pull me aside at any point after this meeting or in private or in public for that matter, and if you've actually read the book, I challenge you to show me any positive resources given for the conditions in these books. It was mentioned that these books are resources for people that are afflicted with these sexual assaults. I implore you, I beg you to show me the resource. Show me what positive resource is in either of these books. The previous book, the coping mechanisms were drugs and alcohol, sexualization, just cutting, bulimia, hiding. It actually reinforced not speaking up, and contrary to what all the comments were, it actually reinforced the stigma of not speaking out. There was never anyone in that book that they were open with concerning their situation. There was no resolution. Even with the counsel in the very end, they shared very little about a separate issue that had nothing to do with the previous, and there was no justice. In this book, Red Hood, I'll kind of skip to the end, but the coping mechanism is murder. Now, I'm not opposed to predators being dealt with that way. I wouldn't necessarily put a 16-year-old in that position to make that. I think I would prefer a book written for dads along that line, maybe. But for kids, I don't think that's appropriate. So just a brief description of what I gathered from this book. After describing a 16-year-old receiving graphic oral sex in the back of a car in the woods and finishing to completion with a poetic description of orgasm, she discovers that she's had her first period. Now, most of this is discussed as, well, this is a positive, mention of a young lady's menstrual cycle, and but this actually reinforces her shame. All it does is actually talk about her shame and embarrassment that causes her to flee into the woods at the sight of blood, into the woods where she's attacked by a wolf that she luckily fights off and kills. Later discovers that wolf is a young man who's a sexual predator, and it kicks off a whole cycle of violence and retribution and bloodshed. But it was shame, not any healthy mechanism of empowerment or healthy understanding of her reproductive system or her menstrual cycle. So the book describes itself as a critique of toxic masculinity. It describes sexual predators transforming into murderous wolves as a metaphor for sexual assault and rightfully being hunted for termination, but it's actually attack on femininity, reinforcing personal body shaming, reinforcing a shame of embarrassment for female puberty and menstruation, glorifying abortion as a heroic act, and expressing a shameful regret for not for having children at all and not aborting the one that she did have. The months spent pregnant delayed the onset of her superpower senses brought on by menstruation that helped her hunt down and kill more wolves. And so this disturbing scenario, science fiction based scenario, really is all about glorifying abortion and vilifying motherhood. It's an attack on femininity. It's an attack on womanhood. So much so that she says having her child cost the lives of at least 9 other lives because the 9 months she spent without her menstrual cycle, which was the basis of her powers to hunt down these wolves for her retribution. Now, what I want to share for a few minutes, there's an article by Mrs. Reader Pants, and she makes a lot of good points. One of them being, of course, we talk about coping mechanisms. Is murder really the solution here? Is that the only way to cope with this? And so how is she qualified to be the judge, jury, and executioner? Again, I don't have any opposition to dealing with these predators this way, but the book portrays this young lady with some supernatural discernment. And of course, just to take it a step further, imagine someone actually in that situation who's been sexually assaulted by some predatorial teenager, taking on this book and its encouragement for violence and looking around saying, well, I know based on that guy acting like this, well, he must be a predator too. Let's get him, and this coven-like mentality. But she mentions here this Mrs. Reader Pants. She says, the book treats boys as though they deserve to die because of their toxic masculinity. Our society absolutely has a problem with men who prey on women, but the answer isn't that these men automatically deserve to die. Especially hard for me to forget that these are still teenage boys who may or may not be aware of what they are doing in their wolf forms. And so it's an honest question. Why is killing them the only answer? And do these young boys, these predators, do they know that they're predators? Do they know what they're doing? There's no example of that in the book that gives us any insight. But this lady also asked another question: Are there no girl wolves in this world? Is it only young men that are predators? Are there when a young lady does horrible acts, is murder justified in that sense as well? There's no mention of any of that. And one of the biggest things she points out is, why is no one helping these boys? Why is, again, the solution to murder them in the woods as opposed to, again, she says, who makes that call? Why does no one help these boys and not become wolves and die? Why is hunting and killing teen boys better option than trapping them until they morph back into humans so they can be dealt with? Again, there's a lot of questions, and basically like a lot of these books, I've talked with my daughters about these at length. there are elements of it that could spark good conversations. And I do believe, I'm going to look up, Kathy, the Teens Choosing to Read. I'm curious to see that these books were in that study, or what books were, because I agree young people need resources and books that are helpful in these issues. But these are not those books. And it's a huge misconception that these are those books. I'm telling you, there is nothing in these books that would help anybody in that situation. Matter of fact, it does a lot of harm and encourages really bad coping mechanisms, murder being top of the list. So based on that, she goes through just the content itself. Of course, sexuality, pretty obvious. Just based on that alone, again, it's like a lot of stuff I was thinking about on the way here and talking about with my young ladies. You know, HBO, Netflix, you know, they have lots of shows where we become desensitized by all this. A lot of you know also, there's great stories, great shows I like to watch, but then there's one stupid scene that ruins it all. And it doesn't add to the plot, it doesn't add to the development, it doesn't do anything for it, but they feel obligated to insert this pornographic part into it to make a point. But if you were to remove the graphic depictions of sex, if you were to remove the most egregious parts, the criminal elements, you may be able to mend the storyline and make it effective, add resources. I'm all for that, but just based on the graphic depictions of sexualization and intercourse, it's inappropriate. Violence, the character is tracking down boys that morph into wolves, plenty of blood and description of wolf death, menstrual blood. And then, of course, what a lot of people have mentioned too, mixed in with all this is the normalizing of drugs and alcohol. Teens getting drunk at parties, and the whole idea is, well, of course teens get drunk at parties. It's normal. It's a criminal act, first of all. And I'm not, and book bans aside, nobody's banning a book. But should the community's funds, taxpayer money, go to promoting activities that we otherwise deem criminal on the other end, just because it's in our culture, in our community, do we need to be reinforcing it with tacit approval? Do we need to so what do we do? We're gonna lock them up and put them in juvie for the same crimes that we pump their heads full of in the library? How does that work? Sorry, I'm going on, but there's a lot going on here. Drugs and alcohol was a major concern. A lot of talk about menstruation, descriptions of menstruation. That's not the issue. Again, there's no positives that I see. And again, I implore anyone, show me, because I've got two young ladies and we're very open with them. We talk about these things and they're very body positive and they're very aware of their bodies and situations and even the negative aspects. I see nothing as a father, as a pastor, as a human being or a citizen in this community. I see nothing beneficial in these books for these issues. So I'll open it up if anybody else wants to make a comment.
I'll go ahead and go. Hi, Michelle Dempsey. I'm going to take this in a different way. A couple different points I wanted to make when reading this. I decided that I wasn't going to read anything about the author, that I was going to read the book first and see if I could figure out the viewpoint of the author. And it didn't take me long to realize that she was a total feminist. And actually, at the end of the book, she does say she's a feminist. What I didn't care for about this book was how they put a little bit of the critical race theory in there, because the only wolves were white boys, athletic boys that were privileged. There was no diversity in the wolves. It was no diversity at all. It was just the white boys, the athletics, the privileged white boys. So there's a little, when they say that they're throwing CRT into our reading, I didn't know what it looked like till I read this book, and I immediately picked up on it. Only white boys rape girls? Where's the diversity here? You know, we're all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was none of that. They definitely singled out, and they used the word white boys, blue eyes. They made sure they said that over and over. Very obvious to me. There was a positive part in this book, and that is the friend, Keisha. She wrote an article in the paper, and she was trying to bring awareness, and that part I appreciated, and to get people talking about what was going on. She did some article in the paper, and that was the one thing that I thought was pretty good in the book, was she was trying to get people to talk about some of it. So there was a little bit of that, and that was good. Again, we're representing our community, and everybody has different views on what's appropriate and not appropriate, but we're here to represent the people that put us up here. And so when we're talking about a public library, you think anything should go. It's a public library, and that seems to be the dialogue that you hear for the people that are for having every book in the library, is that it's everybody's library, and that is true. We're just an advisory committee with no teeth. I'll agree to that, because I knew that personally that the way that this was going to be happening is exactly how it's happened. They're going to put every book back on the shelf, but we can have our say. And I think if we're representing our community fairly, I think Karen said that most of the community out here is conservative, and so we're representing by our personal and our community that we're here to represent. And I think for community standards, that from a taxpayer point of view and a point of view that if there's no added value, do we need the books? And they're not resources, they're fiction. And there's no, like Pastor Chad said, there's no, you don't finish reading the book thinking that you've learned something or there's a resource at the end of it. So I don't know that it really adds value other than it's entertainment. And, you know, and as far as the sexual content, I think because it was a feminist writing it, and I think she was trying to empower the positive of women being in charge of their sexuality and in a positive light, and I could kind of see where that might be. But again, this is for young adult readers, according to the book, and I don't know that it's appropriate for young people. I would say it was probably more appropriate for an adult. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I have to agree that this is a very hard book to read, just like Identical was. I almost put it down a couple of times, but there were a couple of good things in the book. There was Bizu's relationship with her grandmother and her friends, and the strength it gave her. And as we discuss this, our questions all involve kids 16 and under, while our young adult sections address kids 17, 16, and above. So I continue to believe in intellectual freedom for library users, and I believe in a parent's right to restrict and review material for their children. This could open a door to discussion about the genre of this literature and the subject matter, which is very difficult.
Go ahead.
Camilla Potts. Well, I am a writer, and I found this book quite, forgive me, but it was stupid. I saw that, let me give you an analogy. The reading of this book is likened to watching a smutty B movie and regretting that you wasted your time. There's really no genuine value to it. There, as a composition, there are some interesting points that she creates, but the book in general doesn't really have a complete resolve. And as this woman the author is a feminist. She's alluded to that very strongly. And for her to use the female menses as a hook to move the novel forward, while this natural process is used as a motivator to promote violence, and she depicts the graphic depiction of that. I fail to see how it would be of value to the community. These folks have really represented the book very well in saying that I'm trying to be nice in not wasting the taxpayers' money. The bookstores sell them. You can purchase them online. Why should we pay, or why should taxpayers pay for this? To me, it doesn't make sense. I could say a lot more, but I'm just going to be bottom line right now and just say I just can't see any value, and I think it belongs in the bookstore and online. Oh, there was one other thing. When I read the book, I wrote out my little scorecard, and then I thought, well, I'll go online and look at some of the book reviews. Well, guess what? There were some that liked it, and most did not, because it did fail as a book, and it was very odd, but it also empowered a feminist point of view, and it was very strong. And a lot of folks didn't quite like that. So it was just interesting. So there you go.
If I could add, in the reviews that I saw, a lot of the parents were shocked that this came into the hands of their children, and when they read it, they thought it should be an adult book and inappropriate for young people. I want to make one other point. Anyone else is welcome to jump in, but the relationship between the grandmother and the daughter, they're saying it's a great relationship. It's a relationship based on the willful homicide of young teenagers. I just want to reiterate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I will say a few things. I'll read what I wrote first. I don't think a fiction book about murder mixed with the occult, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, but this book was about the occult and full moons, and that might be subtle, but I think it's a real big issue. I don't think it should be placed in the young adult section or children's section of our libraries. The book offers no help. It's just like bringing the issue and the abuse and the terrible evil to the top, but it doesn't offer any hope or help to kids that would read this book. And I also want to ask those who approve of this book being in libraries, what is a limit? What do you see as a limit for depicting evil and murder and the occult and explicit sexual experiences to young adults? So being a grandmother, a great-grandmother, I was hoping that the grandmother would be part of the solution in this book. But actually, she was pretty much the instigator of it. And as the book ends, if I'm understanding it right, the girls got together with the grandma and they went and murdered the girl's dad, the girl's father. It was very explicit violence and evil personified, and it's not that teenagers don't think about these things or experience them or know people who have gone through some of this, but with no help offered, like to go to your school nurse or a teacher that you love or a parent that you love or appreciate or a pastor or somebody in the family that could help It offers none of that, absolutely none of that. And I'm really, actually, I think since I've been reading these books, it's really affecting me. And I'm really a strong person, spiritually and emotionally, but I can really see the effects that reading this crap has upon me. And I can only imagine if my granddaughters and great-granddaughters had access to this, because somebody mentioned the word addicting. This stuff is secretive, and it's evil, and it's there's very much curiosity stirred up with books like this.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? It's open for any comments, any questions, any discussions.
I have one more quick thing. I think we're all sitting here hoping for redeeming value. These books are fiction, they're entertainment. That's all. And we have this high expectation. It's supposed to be literally, it's supposed to impress us and wow us and make a difference in the world. It's not. That's not what these books are written for.
All right. So as was mentioned earlier by Mrs. Morrissey, we need to be very careful to answer every question. And I guess we also have the ability to make recommendations that certain questions be removed, I suppose. But for now, unless we want to have that discussion, I would encourage you to find a way to answer all of the evaluation criteria to give no room for misunderstanding. But if there's no questions, we'll move on to our scorecard, and we'll go through that together as a group and make our recommendation. So I think we had a brief discussion last month about some of the initial questions, and we kind of decided some of them aren't applicable. I know I wrote NA on a few, as far as the material being in good condition, based on the report from the staff. We can make certain assumptions. We don't have any reason to believe it's not in good condition, but if there's not any other discussion or questions, anyone opposed to us going through the scorecard together? Anything else? All right, we'll begin. Is the material in good condition or appearance? We'll start down here.
Well, I had a little confusion on the definition of material. Are they referring to the book, or are they referring to the what content?
I believe it's referring to the book, the physical book. But
Okay.
is that a fair assessment, Mr. Leslie? Okay, I think that's fair.
So the material, and again, in good condition, physically it is in good condition, and the book cover is not one that I would choose right away, but it is decent.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, since we got a new book, it is in good condition. But I still don't like the book.
Okay. Yeah, so whatever your answer is, writing it down, just go ahead and convey that. Go ahead.
It's in good condition according to the report.
Okay, I said yes.
Yes.
It's in good condition according to the staff report.
Yes, it's in good condition according to the staff report.
I'm an alternate, and so I'm not sure if I can vote.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. It
Okay,
was in
I'm sorry,
good condition.
I'm sorry. No, Nan, you're the alternate. Yes, you're. So, Hugh, if I could, are we okay to? I think we're okay to share her conclusion, but it wouldn't be included as a. Is that fair? Yeah, I just want to make sure it didn't feel inappropriate for someone to share their opinion. I'm okay with it. I think as a committee, if we're okay with it, then we can let that go. If no one has any opposition, so you go. Feel free to share your opinion, and then, but only the other alternate will count for the vote.
Yeah, I understand that. It was in good condition. It wasn't torn or ripped or burned or anything like that.
All right. Is the topic of the material a priority for the collection?
No.
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 I'm not aware whether this topic is a priority in the collection at the Willow Library.
I'm a bit confused about the question because is it a priority for the library? Priority for the residents of Wasilla? Because the staff report seems to say that it is a priority.
Again, you have to answer that question. They're answering it from their perspective of their understanding of the topic. I'm answering it from my understanding of the topic. And so it comes down to your conclusion of whether or not it matches their description of the policy. So we're looking for your input, but it is based on the priority of the collection. So I'm basing my opinion on, does this topic, the way I perceive it, match their values in the collection for the library? We may still have different conclusions on what that means, but that's the basis of our opinion. Does that make sense? So you have to answer that for yourself.
For myself. Oh, okay. I would say no.
I said no also.
All right. Is the format of the material a priority to the collection?
No.
I voted yes.
Yes, it is a book.
I said no.
No.
Yes, books are a priority in the young adult collection.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Has the material been used frequently by patrons?
It's unknown to me.
The only thing we know, place we know it was checked out 12 times at the Willow Library. We don't know about the others.
Somewhat frequently, I'd say.
No.
No.
It's been used 12 times since 2020 in Willow, or 3 times a year. So no, it has not been used frequently.
Oops, sorry. The report said it's a medium rate of checkout for the libraries. So I would say it's a medium rate of checkout.
You're welcome to answer anyway. The question would be, is it frequent? So, but you can answer.
It's a yes or a no?
No, you can answer however you want. I'm just clarifying.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'll say no.
All right. Is the material factually accurate?
It's fiction. I have to say no.
I put not that I could tell, so the answer is no.
It's a real work of fiction.
No.
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 I put not applicable.
I'll say no also.
Has the material been superseded by a new edition or a better source?
I don't think so, no.
I put not that I know of, so the answer is no.
That's a no.
Unfortunately, no. But of all the writers here, if you'd like to pick up that task, I'd encourage you to do that.
No.
I said not applicable.
I also said not applicable.
No.
Is the material relevant to the needs and interests of the community?
I will say no.
No.
So we don't need to glorify murder.
No.
No, again, it's fiction, it's entertainment.
Based on the staff report, it said 33.7% of the Mat-Su women experience sexual violence in their lifetime, so yes.
No.
No.
Can the material be easily borrowed from another source?
I said yes, if they could borrow it from a friend or family member.
I said, I don't know.
Yes, I have a copy right here if anybody needs it.
Yes.
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 Does the material have literary, artistic, scientific, political, or educational merit?
No, it does not.
I wrote it might be to older teens, to teens older than 16, but to me, it's no.
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 Yes.
No.
No.
Does the material have positive reviews in one or more appropriate professional journals?
It did, but most of the reviews were negative that I read.
I said yes.
Maybe not.
Okay, so I'm a little bit jaded in my understanding of appropriate professional journals after going through this process, and so I said no. I didn't see an appropriate professional journal that reviewed this.
I said yes, just because the place where people look at reviews are your places they listed in the staff report.
I said not applicable because we don't have access to professional journals that review this.
No.
No.
Does the material have positive reviews from critics, patrons, or staff members?
I do not know.
I'd put yes, but I think I'm going to change it to no.
I said barely positive review.
Well, there were positive reviews, so yes.
I said yes, some.
I found both positive and negative reviews for this material.
Yes.
Is it my turn? Yes, obviously, or there would not have been staff supporting to keep this book in the libraries. So my answer was yes.
Are there sufficient materials available on the same subject?
I really have no idea.
I put yes because I think there probably is.
Yes.
I put no. I mean, there probably are resources that deal with the basics of it, but I've come across none that cover what this would attempt to cover in any positive way. I do, again, want to reiterate, I am looking and hoping for these resources. This is not it, but there is no sufficient material on this subject that I know of, so no.
I did say yes, because I'm assuming that there's some resource books out there. I don't know where they are, but I'm guessing there are probably some books that would be helpful on the subject.
I didn't have access to this information, especially what's available in the collection in Willow.
I put yes because the staff report says there are many nonfiction books and resources available on the subject of sexual abuse and harassment. So they're telling me there are many resources. They just didn't say what they were. Yes.
I put yes also. Sufficient materials on the same subject, probably worded differently, but murder and the occult mixed together are pretty a pretty bad combination, but I'd imagine there's other books that are down the line that we have to read that will include some of that. So my answer was yes.
If I could just clarify my position, I'm sure there are materials that are useful in these issues, whether it be menstruation or the sexual assault. But in terms of the same subject, I was thinking in my mind, a fiction-based, kind of rendition that actually is helpful, to a young person, in that kind of entertaining setting. And so I'm not aware of any that would match this in that sense. But I'm sure there are plenty of other resources that we should try to encourage. Does the material have reputation and or significance of the author, publisher, or producer?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, but I would like to say, I think this is one of the questions we should lose, because this is not about the author or the publisher or the producer. This is about the community standards, in my opinion.
Yes.
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 All right. And for the suitability for minors under 16, we have the following questions. Answer yes or no. Question 1. Does the material depict the following actual or simulated conduct? Sexual penetration, the lewd touching of a person's genitals, anus, or female breast, masturbation, bestiality, the lewd exhibition of a person's genitals, anus, or female breast, or sexual masochism or sadism?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Would the average individual applying contemporary community standards find that the material taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest in sex for persons under 16 years of age?
No, it doesn't.
I said yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
I said no.
Okay, so are there any questions about that question? Are we aware what prurient interest is? I could pull it up. I had to look it up a while back.
Yes, I looked it up too. And so to me, the question is asking, does it arouse sexual interest or promiscuity in young
Does it spark
children?
arousal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, everyone clear with your answers? Does the book arouse? Would it encourage sexual arousal in a person under 16 years of age?
That's a good question. I think it would scare some half to death, and others it might.
Well, the first chapter certainly is a pretty poetic depiction of prurient interest. So, I mean, everyone has their own answer. I just want to make sure that we're everyone feel solid with their answers? Okay. Moving along. Question 3. Did we get all the way down the line? I think so, yeah. Would a reasonable person find that the material taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, educational, political, or scientific value for persons under 16 years of age?
Yes.
I said no.
Yes.
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 No. Yes.
Yes.
Does the material depict actual or simulated conduct in a way that is patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for persons under 16 years of age?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
And yes.
Okay. Would anyone like to share their comments if they have any that they didn't already put down, if they had any amendments or addendums to their comments? You have a moment here before we make the final disposition. Go ahead.
One quick comment. Reading the book, I got the impression that this was written for kids under the age of 16. The standard of writing just didn't seem to be up to par for a 16 or above. And that was my big concern. Again, I personally feel the book would have scared younger kids more than it would have sexually aroused them. Now, that might be different for boys, but for women,
Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to make another comment. Actually, I thought the book was written over, let's see, how do I say this? Well, probably most girls begin their menstruation cycle about 13 or 12 or something like that, maybe even younger. And this book seemed to be written to people older than that. It was using words. The author used words, not sexual words, but just words that I had to look up. And I'm a reader and I am a writer. And so I understand pretty much what I read. But there are words that I had to look up because I wasn't sure of them. So I think she was writing above the age level. I really do.
Yeah, I would say too, it definitely felt kind of odd and inappropriate. I think just by nature, when you have an adult trying to put themselves in the mind and story of a teenager, they make a lot of awkward assumptions. I think the whole initial story that kicked this all off is a very unrealistic circumstance of a first time encounter. But of course it's for, a purpose in driving the story along. But there's a lot of awkwardness just in the way that it's presented that wouldn't be natural for young people. You could tell it's written by an adult trying to talk to young people, but I mean, that's natural. Anyone else? We're going to move on to the disposition and the final decision. If you could, we'll just go down the list of how you checked your suggested disposition.
I said remove from the library.
I said reshelve it to the adult section.
Or remove it from the library.
I also said remove from the library. The main reason being, again, if this were to be purchased in an occult bookstore, I wouldn't fight it. But since our libraries have no means of protecting library patrons from accessing the book, reshelving it serves no purpose to me at all. So the book should be removed from the library.
Remove from the library.
Reshelve the book to the adult section.
I have decided to put remove from the library because it is a public library funded by taxpayer dollars. I can't see any value in this book. And if a person wants this book, they can get it on Amazon or wherever they want to get it. But I can't see that we need to put this sort of, it really is a trashy, vulgar, disturbing, dark, evil book. So I put remove.
I'll say remove also, but I am a non-voting alternate person on the committee tonight.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? We'll move on to new business. And we have, I believe, the staff has mentioned damsel available. Is that correct? Also, we have in the queue available the books Forever by Judy Bloom and The Haters by Jesse Andrews. I personally, it's six of one, half a dozen of another. I have no preference on what we choose next. I'm a little worn out. You know, as was mentioned earlier, you get reading a couple of these books and you get a little shell shocked, and not looking forward to reading another one. In particular, the book Damsel, I know is being put into a movie format of some kind. I saw some trailers, and the most disturbing thing about it for me is that it actually looks interesting, and I probably would want to like it. But I'm just sure it's going to be ruined somehow by some stupid agenda otherwise. And so part of me is actually concerned for myself that there may be parts of this that I would enjoy. It's a retelling of the Cinderella story, I believe, or a mixture of these grim tales, and you know, done from some pretty good perspective. There's some good conversations possibly in them, and some interesting twists. I don't know specifically of what will come, so I don't know how to make recommendations. But if anyone has any thoughts or comments, we do have the book Damsel available today. And if we want to have a discussion for the other books, I'm sure they'd be made available within a reasonable period of time. Any comments?
Just beware, it's the same author you just read, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of the same.
Yeah.
Different story, but similar.
I'm assuming the shoe will drop. I just don't know what to expect.
But I'd like to try a different author.
Since it's available, and it was a Prince Award winner, it's like my curiosity is up on it, but I know.
Well, I would just throw out my personal opinion. I probably would lean towards picking up Damsel today, but I would encourage all of us to do research on the other two books to have a better idea, so we can have a discussion of what books to pick up next. Because I don't personally have any strong feelings any other way, and we'll just go through the list one by one as far as that goes. There's nothing wrong with that. But if anyone has any other opinions or concerns or thoughts, you're welcome to. You have an open floor for a few more minutes. Anybody?
Maybe we could take a break from this author. I have read other books by Judy Blume, because I have two young daughters too, and well, they were young. I read them. So I am curious why Judy Blume is on the list of objectionable books, and I maybe take a break from the other author.
Okay. That's a fair comment.
I would agree with her comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to say, I'm leaning that way too, just from exhaustion. You know, I hate to say it. We'll pick up Damsel. We'll pick up a lot of other books, I'm sure. Did you want to speak to it?
My only thing is it's available, it's here, and if the movie comes out, we might want to read the book before the movie comes out. But I can go either way.
I don't care which book we read next, but I wanted to make a little comment. I found that as I'm reading the book, and I have grandkids or visitors coming to my house, I hide that book. I hide the book I'm reading. I put it upside down, way over in a corner. I am very ashamed of this book, and I don't want anybody knowing that I'm reading it. Of course, I would explain why, but anyway, that's a point.
All right. Give us a few seconds to ruminate. Forgive us. I know we got to make a decision. We may be split. We'll have to make a vote. Go ahead and dig your heels in. Try to figure out which path you'd like to take. I think I know which way I'm leaning. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we read Forever by Judy Blume as our next selection.
I second.
All right. Is there any opposition? Okay. I don't want to be the fly in the ointment. Mr. Leslie, would what would the timeline be if we were to choose that book? What would we expect? Is there kind of open-ended? We really don't know. We'd have to order it outright and wait on the mail system.
Our turnaround is usually about a week.
Yeah.
We order them directly from Amazon or Barnes and Noble, something like that. So we can get them to you within 10 days usually.
10 days. Okay, so then the process of that would be you'd get them here and we'd pick them up from you or organize that somehow?
I'll defer to Sarah on that, but usually we'll either get them to you where you pick them up or we can mail them to you for those of you that are further out of the core area.
Okay. The only other concern I would have would be timing. We'll lose a couple weeks in the process, and then we'll, not that we won't be able to read crunch time, but if there's no opposition, we'll pick up Forever by Judy Blume. And it looks like that is the motion. All right.
Can we pick the book that we're going to do after that? So if they have to order it, is that something we could do this far in advance so we could be more prepared?
It's not a bad. Would you mind, at least for what we have in the queue, could we just order the haters as well? Those are the only ones we have available at this time, right? As far as the queue.
We certainly can. One of the things in the legislation, and I think the spirit of this is the board will choose the books that it wants to review.
Yeah.
This is not an inclusive list. It is a subjective list for you to choose from. You could
so
choose
we can add to this.
one, two, well, or none for that, for example. So if the board is saying we want to review all three of these, we'll order all three.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
And as far as the list online, the rest of the queue, we can also request those as well.
So those, just for the folks maybe who don't know the process, when a person requests a book be brought forward, they initially meet with the librarian. The librarian then has a conversation with that patron, and then they can agree to keep the book where it is, move the book, or disagree, at which point it goes, it will come to you. And it's in sequential order as we receive them from the patron and the just so everybody knows, there have been agreements made between patrons and librarians about where books go. And then, of course, there's ones like this where they don't agree. So it's not just a one-sided process all coming to you. There's library books that are being moved. And in fact, I think last week or the week before, there was a meeting between a patron and a librarian, and a book was moved from the YA section to the adult section. So you'll only see the ones where there's no resolution between the librarian and the patron.
Okay, so just to clarify, I'll have to go over the list again. I thought there were a few others that were under reconsideration that weren't on this list. Is that not correct? Like, for example, initially, Identical was under reconsideration. We kind of pulled it off from that uncompleted
Correct,
review.
yeah. There was, when we went from the old process to this process, there were some in the queue that had not been resolved
So if we
yet.
go through that and select from one of those, we can add that to the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make mention, if you guys can get online and look through the list on they have a dashboard there of unresolved reviews. And if there's one there that piques your interest or that pops up that you want to bring to the committee to have on the agenda to consider, that we can add to that list as well from there.
So do we need to talk to Sarah about that or
Well, sure. And I'm so torn about this, talking to the lawyers. The lawyers told me not to talk to these guys at all. He told me not to email them, not to, like in the beginning, I had to just to get them into a meeting.
I would
I
encourage.
don't mind facilitating.
I would encourage, based on what you said. So the dashboard is up to date as it's usually done in a real-time format or very close to a real-time format. And as books are brought in and reviewed and so on, as you look through that, the dashboard there, it tells you where the book is allegedly in the process. Because we're evolving with this process as we go. You've reviewed a couple of books now. I think the process will become much cleaner. What I would suggest is for your next meeting, because you're going to arguably you've picked a book tonight. At your next meeting, maybe look through that dashboard, come to the meeting with this recommendation, not necessarily reach directly out to the
And I
chair.
think maybe what Sarah was implying too is that I, as the chair, I could go through that and put it on the agenda to be discussed. Is that fair? Yeah, that makes sense. So that's on me. I'll go through that. You can look on the dashboard if you want to inform yourself. I will pick from that others that can be considered, and we can present them at the next meeting. Is that fair?
Yeah, I defer to that. You figuring this out for us.
Yeah. And I have no problem doing that. But at the same time, you guys can also look on the dashboard on the website as well. I just want to encourage you to do that. That was my main goal with that. So, with that, we will have Damsel available for sure. We will get Forever Judy Bloom soon. If we decided today that we want to pick up The Haters by Jesse Andrews, we can start the process and ask them to order that. Would anyone like to make a motion that we also ask them to make that book available?
Sure, I'll make a motion to get The Haters, make it available.
A second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Does that make sense to have that available, and then we can go through those as they come, and then I'll do my best to clarify any others from the dashboard.
Some of us like to know how and where is the dashboard. I mean, I got one in my car.
So if you go on the Matsu Borough website and you go to committees, boards, and you click on the actual committee itself, the library citizen advisory committee, library citizen advisory committee.
You mean us?
Yeah, LCAC. You click on it, and at the bottom of the page, it'll kind of give a brief description of who we are, and then it'll show up as kind of a scrolling list of books that have been through the process, completed and uncompleted, and it has a whole breakdown, almost like a spreadsheet. And it's pretty obvious. And then at the bottom has more information of past meetings and things like that. But it's like a homepage or a website for this committee on the borough website.
Thank you very much.
And I think that's it. Our next meeting, if there's no opposition, will be October 14th, 2024. And any closing comments? I'll give opportunity to the staff first. If you have any closing comments.
Just that we do have the information provided by the public here. I would like to get in the board's hands prior to them all leaving. And thank you, everybody.
All right.
Could I request that the book be mailed to me, since I have quite a drive to come out here? Thanks.
I'll reach out to each of you individually, and then we can
Okay.
figure out how you want to get your book.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other closing comments? We'll go down and start the line if you want to. Any closing comments or words? If not, we'll wrap up.
I just wanted to say, I think the book Red Hood and Identical were actually well evaluated within this panel, so thank you very much.
Susan, anything?
I don't have anything else to say.
All right.
No further comments.
All right. I have no comments. I think I said more than enough.
Nothing else?
I'd like to suggest that we drop 2 questions from the evaluation criteria. The first one being, has the material been superseded by a new edition or better source? And because we're reading mostly fiction, it's not relevant, and we won't know if the librarians acquired a new source or not. So, and the other question being, the last question, does the material have reputation and or significance of the author, publisher, producer? I find that question very hard to understand, so.
Okay. Could you repeat the first one again, just to make sure I have
The
the
first
right one?
one is has the material been superseded by a new edition or better source?
Okay. While we're at it, was there any Any that others would like to add to this list, we can, and then someone can make a motion, we can lump them together. I would add, honestly, is the material in good condition and appearance?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And you cannot introduce a motion.
Oh,
What you would have to do is put it on for next. You can't do an action if it's not on the publicized agenda.
oh, thank you.
I apologize.
No, you're absolutely right. So we will put that on for new business.
That's fine.
Next month. Okay. Anything else? I think we're good. And well, comments. We're still going through comments. Go ahead.
Okay, I just have one more comment, and it's a question to people who approve of these books to continue and to be still available to young readers. Would there be a limit or something that would be written or taught, or even a fiction book? Would there be material that would be offensive? And I'm just wondering if this stuff that we're reading is allowed, is there anything that wouldn't be allowed to people who do not see anything wrong with this material?
All right. Thank you. And with that, I think that we will adjourn if there's no opposition, and we'll see you October 14th at 5 p.m. Thank you.